Hey everybody, welcome to the first Tai Chi / Qigong workshop. My name's Charlie Partin. I've been doing Tai Chi for 30 years and was lucky enough to be taught by a classical teacher, Bob Messenger. Rest in peace, Bobby. He was a great teacher. And I've been doing classical yoga for a long time, so I have a background, and today I'm going to be talking more about Qigong than I am about Tai Chi. In Tai Chi there are hundreds of forms, probably thousands of different forms, emphasizing different movements. But a form is not substance. A form is if you have a bowl, that's form. The stuff inside the bowl is substance. And you can go online, or there's a number of teachers that have different forms, and you can learn the form. And we will probably wind up with a form here eventually, but what we're going to start with is the substance of Qigong. As Cohen once said, Qigong is the art and science of moving energy throughout your body. And it's used in martial arts because there are several things that you want to do in martial arts and some things you don't want to do. What you don't want to do is get knocked over, so balance is very important. What you do want to do is to be able to use your body in its most efficient manner. And that's where the Qigong comes in handy. So we start with the basic movement, or the basic posture in Qigong, which is called the horse stance, and as though you were riding a horse. It's also called embracing the moon. It's also called standing like a tree, because your roots are going down into the ground, and your branches and your leaves are going up into the heaven. And we are a balance between the yin of the ground and the yang of the sky. So in this stance, we put our feet approximately shoulder width apart, and we move back and forth and make sure that our balance is between those two. And then maybe we rock back and forth so that our main point of balance is at the soles of the feet. There are well points that go down into the ground. So we're pushing down into the ground as though we're pushing the earth away from us. Second thing to remember in the horse stance is to form an arch right here, or think about maybe having a stick across there, so that your knees are directly above your feet. And that principle goes all the way through Tai Chi. All these principles go all the way through Tai Chi, but if your knees are not directly over your feet, when you start putting pressure down, you're going to mess up your knees, because they're going to be crooked. So in all our movements, we want to keep our feet above, our knees above our feet. And we want to be able to see our toes. If our knees are out further than our toes, then we need to adjust. The next thing we want to think about is tilting our hips, our pelvis. We want, here's an image. We picture a bungee cord attached to the bottom of your spine that's going down into the earth, and that bungee cord, when it's pulled down, shifts your pelvis into the proper position. In Qigong, the image is that this is the cauldron in which our energy resides. And if we tilt it, it's going to spill our energy. A more practical way to look at it is, if you're tilted, you have what's called lordosis, and you're putting additional weight on your back and on your spine. And it's where most of our back problems come from. If you watch a baby as he learns to walk, that's the way they walk. They have their pelvis tilted so that they have the maximum amount of balance that they can get. So our next image is our shoulders. We want our shoulders to be back and down. If you picture putting your shoulder blades in your back pocket, as Rick Barrett puts it. Another image is the old Dutch boy who carries the buckets, and his shoulders move back. So when we were talking earlier about calling this embracing the moon, the reason I like that image is because if you picture that moon, or say a yoga ball, being pushed into your stomach, if you follow the contour of that moon, your pelvis naturally comes around. And something very important, it's kind of hard to describe, but your solar plexus moves up around the ball, so that you form a little concavity there. So in that method, we are standing directly above our hips, and directly above our feet, and directly above our knees. This gives us balance. The next thing to remember is to push your chin in and pull your head up. Here's another image. There's a lot of imagery in Taoism and in Tai Chi, because your body can understand images sometimes better than explanations. So this is one of my own. It's a little unusual, but if you picture yourself on a merry-go-round, and the pole goes directly through the top of your head, that soft spot up there, goes down through your neck, through your chest, through your abdomen, down into the ground. And you are a character on this merry-go-round going up and down. If you're crooked, of course you're not going to go down, you're going to bind. This is the natural way to stand and to move, and we lose it over the years because we hold all our tension up here, and we hold all our tension down here. So we're walking around in an exaggerated form like this, rather than unfolding. It takes a while to learn to relearn your body. If you're a golfer and somebody, a pro, corrects your swing, that swing's going to feel wrong for a long time until it doesn't. And that's what we experience here. The more that we form this posture throughout all our activities, the more it will become natural. So if we picture that string, that golden string, not only attaching here, but let's picture it attaching right up under here, where I was talking about before, up in the rib cage, because if that pulls up, then all of this moves naturally. So that's our basic form. We have little tennis balls under our armpits. We have little balls between our fingers. We point our index fingers. If you notice, Tai Chi masters, they always have that index finger pointed, and they usually don't explain why. But there's a certain amount of power that comes when we point these fingers during our movements. In yoga, the meditation is like so. It's called the ego finger. And when you want to meditate, you pull those inward, and bring them back into your body. But when you want to push power out, you express those. So basically, this is the horse stance. And it's the basic stance. You can learn almost all you need to know about posture right there. The second thing that we really want to impress on you is breath. Now, in our natural way of breathing in the West, we breathe up and we stop, and we breathe back down, and we stop and we breathe up and stop and back down. And we breathe from our chest. The natural way to breathe is from our abdomen. If we breathe from our abdomen and push out when we inhale, we fill that balloon. That drops the diaphragm down so that you can get a lot more air into your lungs. If you're breathing from up here, you're breathing about 1/3 of the capacity of your lungs. If you breathe from down here, like so, that oxygen goes down in the bottom of the lungs. That's where all the alveoli are that transfer the good stuff from the oxygen into your blood system. So it's very important. And in Qigong, a lot of the movements pertain to, number 1, balance, number 2, breath. So let's start with a basic Qigong move. You've probably seen that a lot of people think he's a Buddha, but he's like this. There are a bunch of statues of this little old fat guy with a big old grin on his face doing this, and it's called holding up the moon, or holding up the sky. He was actually a guy named Tai. He was a Taoist monk that wandered around China carrying his instrument and all his belongings in a little sack. And he went from village to village teaching people Tai Chi and Qigong in exchange for lodging and food and all the rice wine he could drink. It was rumored that he enjoyed his rice wine. But that form right there is the first Qigong move. So let's picture starting our breath from down here and moving our breath and our energy up our spine until we have a full breath here, and then we slide that breath around as though there were a pulley. I was talking earlier about the way we breathe is like this. The natural way to breathe is though there were pulleys at the top and pulleys at the bottom, so that you're not quite sure exactly when you're ending your inhale and starting your exhale. So in that first movement, we move up, we stretch out, we let our breath follow those index fingers down until it comes back around the bottom and comes back up the middle. That spine, in Sanskrit, in yoga, it's called the Sushumna, which is Sanskrit for the flute. So the energy moves up through the Sushumna and out the top and around. Another of my favorite images is of the torus, not the bull torus, but T-O-R-U-S, which is a mathematician's way of saying donut. It's a donut shape, or an inner tube. And we're in the middle of the inner tube, and we're pulling our air up. We're coming slowly around the top, and our breath is following our fingers. And somewhere down around here, we're about to give out a breath, and at some point here, we're raising it again. In meditation circles, they say that you find God at the top and the bottom because you're not quite sure where you are. You're between the yin and the yang. So we breathe up through our nose and out. Some people say through our nose, you can do it through your mouth. It gives you a different source of energy or a different sense of energy. We move up and we move out. And while we're doing this, we think about those shoulders that have now become hunched over a little bit because we're concentrating so much on what we're doing. So we put our shoulders back in our back pockets, our shoulder blades back in our back pockets. Make sure that our chin is in and our head is straight. So many of us, as we get older, start to get that kind of neck. And you can always tell old people because they got their neck stuck out. So particularly for us old folks, I'm 78, so I consider myself an old folk. That's something that I have to constantly be aware of. And at first it seems like, oh, I missed it, I didn't do it right. And that makes you feel bad and you start feeling guilty, which doesn't get you anywhere. But if you smile and say, oh, I recognized it again, and you correct it, and the more times you recognize it and the more times you correct it, the better you'll get at it. And then we close by bringing our energy back down into the ground. All right, let's try another movement which gives us opposite directions, in which we push up with one hand and push down with the other hand. And we swing around, and our breath follows this swing till we come back this way, and we push the other way with the other hands and around. Now we exhale, and slowly we come around, and we inhale as we come around. As we get somewhere around here, we start slowly exhaling with our abdomen. It's called abdominal breath. Sometimes it's called the Buddha breath. It's called the yoga breath. It's found in most mystic physical exercise. And we bring it back down. And after every movement, we bring our energy up and we bring our energy down. So let's go back into our horse stance. Let's check our knees. Let's check our pelvis to make sure it's tilted. And also check your butt cheeks. Almost always you'll find that butt cheeks will be tight. Release that. So that as you bounce up and down on that pole, or another way of thinking about it, let's say that your back is up against a wall. So let's picture that our back is up against a wall, our shoulder blades are against the wall, and our back is up against the wall. And when we move up and down, they stay that way. Your entire spine stays up against the wall. So when we're moving up and down this way. Okay, that deals with stationary position, where your feet are in one position. And most of the substance that we're going to talk about is right in there. You can study that for the rest of your life. But if you take that into your Tai Chi movements or into your everyday movements, then you start noticing a drastic difference. And the next big principle is when we start movement. And that principle is we move with our hips. All right. Now, as we proceed with drumming, which the word comes from the little Tibetan drums that they turn like that, and there are little strings that come out and bang back and forth. And the movement's coming from the handle and up through the axis of that drum. And we're doing that with our hips. But the axis, the Sushumna, the spine, stays straight, and we revolve around it. Now, moving with your hips is one of the critical keys in Tai Chi, because when we move with our hips, we're using the biggest muscles that we have, which are our leg muscles, our butt muscles, instead of our arm muscles. So if we're going to push somebody, and we push them with our legs, or if we spin them with our hips, we're going to be a lot more effective. If you watch professional golfers, baseball players, they never do that. That's an indication that you're a bad golfer or you're a bad baseball player, because you're just using your arms. Your arms, in golf, I'll use an example, your arms always stay in the same position relative to your body, but your hips move. So there's no movement in my arms other than that which is produced by my hips. Same with baseball. Following through. But when we do that, if we're up here and we're not focused and we follow through, we're going to do this. So we want to be in our horse stance so that we are rooted, anchored. This also hits the kidney, which loosens up some of that bad chi that's left in the kidney. In Qigong, which is a medical, more of a medical field than it is a physical field, there's a lot of tapping. There's the tapping of the kidneys, there's the tapping of the internal organs, tapping of the chest. Chest is a big one. You see gorillas doing this because they're releasing that energy from this area. So we want to move with our hips. All right, let's go back to a horse stance. Let's check our legs, our knees, our pelvis, our shoulders, our head, up and down. And we're going to do our first movement, which is called the Tai Chi walk. Now, when we get into movement, our tendency is to move with the upper part of our body. So if we walk like this, or if we move like this, we are automatically off balance. So if we are going to move into our first stance, we want to keep this and we want to keep the foundation, this straight. So we have that pillar steady here. Now let's step out at 45-degree angle. In all Tai Chi, you'll find it's either 90 degrees or 45 degrees. So that we step out, and now we're going to shift our weight through our hips, with our hips, and almost like it's picture it going under the ground into this position. Now we're still maintaining our pillar. We still have as much balance as we can possibly get in this situation. But now we have 70% of our weight here and 30% back over here. So then we pick up, we step out again. We're holding the ball here, by the way. That's called holding the ball. But picture an energy ball, that you've got a little ball of energy right there. So now, as we sink and we step, we screw ourselves into the ground back over on this side. So that now all our weight is here, we're balanced. Pull in, step out, and turn. We turn our weight into this foot. We step in, we step out, and we turn. All right. Let's put it to bed right there. We breathe in. We bring our energy back down into the earth. This is a bit of an introduction into what I like to call the substance of energy movement, which takes us into Tai Chi. And that first movement can be turned into a number of things. But the important thing is not that it's a step or a movement, but it's the way we move our bodies and the way we transfer our energies so that we can stay balanced.